Money is the driving force behind these things. ESG, environmental, social, and governance, those things give companies credit scores. Let's just think of it that way. Give them credit scores to be able to get loans, to be able to get awards, to be able to be considered their ratings, to be able to be considered equitable companies. And this is coming again from the World Economic Forum's agenda. So this is an international agenda. So these corporations are forced to drive LGBTQ agendas. Some of them want to do it, some of them don't want to do it, but they're being forced to do it because if they don't, they won't get the social credit scores.
That's right.
COVID was the lockdowns was intended to destroy small business, which is the fabric of the United States of America. And if we don't have free enterprise, we don't have freedom. They go hand in hand. And your ability to have a small business, your ability to have freedom to speak up, to use your finances, to choose who to hire, not to hire, what to do with your business, your corporation. Well, ESG, they say it's not political, and I clearly show in the book, it is political.
Yes.
Everything about it.
And remind our viewers
is
what
political.
it stands for.
ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So basically, this whole agenda to drive green initiatives and to have a climate emergency global covenant, which we're signing as a nation. 197 nations are signing it in December. It's called COP28 or COP28, where 197 nations come together, as well as the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, spiritual leaders, including the Pope, different ones, coming together. They're also going to have a spiritual, at the Abraham Accord building, they're going to have a spiritual meeting there. All these things coming together where the world is basically saying we have a climate emergency and everyone must comply. Everyone must come along this agenda.
And comply towards what goal?
To the ESG agendas, to
ESG,
climate emissions being brought down to zero emissions.
It said pre-industrial.
Pre-industrial
the long-term goal is
levels,
pre-industrial levels.
Which destroys businesses.
Yeah, and
Destroys
this covenant is for that 40% reduction, I think, in 7 years.
7 years.
So everything's going to change how we live.
And they're calling it a global covenant. It's a 7-year agreement. Israel is also heavily involved in it. King Charles is heavily involved in it. He's actually the master, if you will, of like the face for it and driving it because of agreements and sustainable initiatives he put out in 2021 after being in Davos and speaking to the World Economic Forum in 2020. So we have the Pope, we have King Charles, we have a global agreement, a 7-year agreement, which in the agreement says at 3.5 years they're going to revisit the agreement and see what nations are performing well and doing what they're supposed to do. So back to business.
Back to business, ESG.
ESG. So if you're looking at all of the environment, you got to agree to all the environmental, sustainable initiatives, all the
Carbon
things the World
taxes,
Economic
all
wants.
things,
Exactly. You got to change your business. You got to change the way you do business. All of these things. Then the social piece is LGBTQ. Equity and inclusion. It's part of their global green agreement. You go, well, what does that have to do with green energy? I talk about it in the book. It's a bunch of, I just want to say hogwash. It's a bunch of hogwash. What they describe as the reason we need the LGBTQ, the equity, it's bizarre. And this is the goal. You must bring down prosperous nations in order to give what they call equity, where everyone has the same usage of resources. And the whole thing's bizarre. You and I know, you travel the world, you see more green space. There's still more green space and resources in the world. Right here in America, in upstate New York, there's more green space than there are people. Then there are usage of resources. There is no climate emergency. Yes, I said it. There's no climate emergency. They've created one, just like they create a medical emergency so they can bring the cure. You cannot control people unless you create a problem. Put them in fear, make an agenda, and then now you bring the answer to that agenda. And that's what this whole thing is about. So businesses, they have to go along with the LGBTQ agenda or else they don't get the social credit scores, they don't get the loans, they don't get the contracts, they don't get business, and they get put out. But thank God, and I talk about this too in the book, families are pushing back with their money and saying, we're not going to shop at Target. We're not going to drink that.
Amen.
We're not going to buy this. We're not going to do this. If we join together, they cannot cancel us all.
Well, tell us, I mean, that we had some big successes.
Oh yeah, we had
I
breakthroughs.
mean,
Disney's lost half of its stock share.
Yeah.
Half of its stock share. Now it still unfortunately has way too much financial power. But when it lost half of its stock share, that changes some things. It caused them to have to make some changes in leadership, but they've not changed their heart. I want to say this, neither has Target. I put in the book what the CEO of Target, he apologized to the LGBT community, affirmed, even when they moved some things out of the front of the store, he apologized and said he still is 100% basically behind the agenda. I put the quotes in the book. These are all agendas, and they know even if we scream and we fight and we won't give them our money, on the back burner, they're not changing their agenda. This is a world agenda. So the other ones, ESG,
governance.
environmental social governance, it comes back to I'm going to control your pocketbook and your governance, the way you govern your company, the way you make profits, if you don't go along with these agendas. Now, BlackRock is a driver of this. Many states, more Republican states, pulled out of letting BlackRock and
Hold their
State
pensions,
Street hold their pensions. But they did not change their desire. And,
Right.
and Larry Fink made some comments about, I'm sorry I ever said the
He's
word
the CEO of
ESG.
BlackRock.
Right. He said, I'm sorry. He's not sorry about the agenda. The agenda has not changed. And so we can't be duped by them saying, oh, we're sorry, we'll move the things to the back. No, stay away from those businesses.
Yes.
They still buy into those agendas. Shop with your local small businesses. Try to
Yes.
do everything you can with local farmers, local community people. And that's another whole part of the agenda, is to take farmland, to stop farmers, to shut down. Across the Midwest, they've been grabbing up land. They've been turning land into solar panels, which will damage the land. And then they'll come
Thousands
back
of
and they'll say
acres.
the land's
Yes.
not valuable to farm anymore. They're already predicting, Gary, a emergency. And kids are getting this in school, by the way. They're being told, oh, there's going to be a climate emergency. There's going to be a food shortage. We've got to take. That's why I bought into the abortion agenda. They told me we were going to live in 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot cells, prisons, basically, and get let out during the day. When I
remember.
was in school, you were told
Me-
that.
I was told the same
Well, they're
thing.
telling these kids, they're scaring these kids to believe that we need to bring down the population. We need to depopulate, and we must have abortion, and we must do these things, and we must put solar panels on the land. We must quit driving cars. They're driving all these agendas in their little minds. They're putting them through all these lies to make them scared and to turn against their parents and their government, to believe the World Economic Forum's agendas, the UN agendas, and all of these driving things in the financial sector are for real.
Well, we live here in Ohio, and they're putting solar panels in our township.
Over
trying to,
50 projects across Ohio.
Across Ohio, thousands.
Yes,
yeah,
and these
thousands of acres.
billionaires that drive these agendas, I could name their names, they're in the book, in Fight Like Kevin and in They're Coming for Your Children. These billionaires are paying and underwriting, they're buying up all the land, converting farmland, good land that's used to make most of our food production. We are already depending, now all of our industries moved out. 90% of all manufacturing is moved out of the United States. So this is fixing the money thing. We must fix the financial issues. We must stand up against ESG.
Let's go back to how you create wealth. We gotta have a socialist. You can't have a socialist mindset.
No.
Socialism has proven it's never
works.
worked ever.
Venezuela, disaster.
More oil.
Every country,
More
disaster.
oil than Saudi Arabia, yet it's one of the poorest countries. Inflation rate over 2,000%.
Yes.
And so
And it's not that the resources aren't there.
The resources
it's
are
not
there.
that the
More
ability's
oil.
not there. What they do is a very small group of elite people take all the profits, and the people live in poverty.
Yep.
They live in horrible situations. I outline Venezuela and show what happened in there.
all in the book.
And I
It's
talk
great.
about men, the importance of men and women coming together to reclaim our nation, and how strong men are so crucial to our freedom, and they were in the beginning of our nation and our republic, and they are today. And so women, we aren't fighting men, we are fighting this ugly agenda, and we need to work together. Godly men, we need godly men.